So often we end up talking about bad stuff that goes on in the games industry, right? Fans being serially underserved, all the bull. But today we've actually got a really fantastic story. A story of a community coming together, knowing what they want, indie devs providing that for a long time, and them now actually getting their way in a way that is growing their community and bringing it from strength to strength. This is one of the best stories that is actively going on. Matt, let's tell people about the FGC's massive wins.
Yeah, so anytime you're playing a game and the community is really riled up going, just do this, developers, please, just do this. Just give us what we want. We know we want it, you know we want it, just do it. And that's always like a thing where you see basically developers are in their own world a lot of the time, especially when held back by publishers and there's like a barrier there. Well, that barrier existed for a long time with netcode and in fighting games across maybe the last 15, 20 years has been like a pretty important thing, but especially in the last 10. And COVID kind of showed them up a little bit because I guess I'll explain the difference between delay-based netcode and rollback netcode, which is delay-based netcode, basically shit. Not very good. It'll result in a bad experience, especially as you get like longer ping and like more ping between players. Gets bad. Rollback is a version that was kind of, the game will stay true to what happened. It'll look a little bit glitchy, but it'll be a good experience. But the most kind of, the nicest looking, the one that translates best to like video footage of online play would be delay-based. So delay-based is stuff that fighting games used for a long time, and it was just kind of shitty. Then in like kind of, you're looking at maybe 2009 is where this really all kicked off, right? Because Tony Cannon, the person who's now working on Riot's fighting game, was working on, I can't remember the name of it, but the mech fighting game, Rising Thunder, that's what it's called. And he went and got pissed off with all the shitty netcode in games in the early 2000s and decided, right, well, I'll make this thing called GGPO, an open source tool that is basically any developer can go, hey, plug this in. You have to build your game around it, but plug it in. You've got this rollback netcode implementation that's effectively perfect. And then in the early maybe 2010, 2012 or so, indie games started to use this and it was celebrated, right? Everyone goes, oh, Skullgirls, Dive Kick, stuff like Fight Kid, Punch Planet, Fantasy Strike, all have rollback netcode. And people are like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Please, AAA developers, use this. We want this. This makes games so much better. But they stuck to their guns, were really kind of shitty about it. Except for in the West, where Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct actually did it. Which is interesting first to see kind of Warner Brothers and stuff do this really well.
Yeah.
But obviously that's the MK devs being super tuned in. There's also Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which was interesting because it also was one of the first ones about on-disc DLC. That was one of those big things Capcom really shit the bed with, where here's stuff on the disc, but you have to buy it. But then the first game that kind of had netcode was Street Fighter V. That rollback netcode, it was a major game. And we talked about this a long time ago now, but they kind of scuffed that, and then a fan came in with a fix, and then they slightly changed their netcode and destroyed the fan fix in the meantime. So everyone is like this kind of peak period of developers, you don't know what you're doing. We have this like really super beautiful fighting game scene, but we're stuck in locals. We can't have good online experiences no matter what we do, unless someone's down the road from each other or something, or we're playing something like Skullgirls. And it was just awful experience. The developers just were not listening, and they never explained why, which is another thing you'll see whenever you see developer and like community conversations. It's like, hello, we're the community. We think we know best. Here's all the answers. And the developers are like, we can't tell you why we can't do that, so we have to stay quiet.
Like, dude, as a fan of competitive StarCraft, I can at least say, at least you guys were able to play with a local connection.
Yeah.
In an in-person tournament. In StarCraft, we had the great fun of having a banger match that then just has lag because it's playing in battle.net.
Yep. Or
I'm salty.
Or Warcraft 3 Reforged, where there's no LAN and you have to play your games online and it's all bugged. So the first big esports tournament of Warcraft 3 Reforged, and I think it was the semi-final game, had to be replayed 3 times because it kept dropping out in the middle.
Brutal.
It's brutal. Yeah, so like there was a little bit of work towards this in the past. So SNK had this like Canadian group who were like good at emulation, go back and update their old games over the past couple of years. So they were sneakily in the background doing this great work. But the thing that really happened was COVID, right? Because you can't have a local fighting game tournament. So this beautiful genre was just destroyed. You couldn't play locally, you couldn't play online because all the games were kind of scuffed. There's a couple rollback implementations, and that's where like old games kind of picked up because people would go play old games. But then one day in 2020, one developer took a pretty, like, this wasn't even like a massive risk. This was literally just an experiment. And it was Guilty Gear Cross or XX Accent Core plus R got a public test of rollback netcode. And everyone's like, is this it? Is this the start? Is this the start of something beautiful? This 18-year-old game, including like the base GGXX, it's finally getting rollback as an experiment. And then this number is going to seem small to you because you watch this channel. We talk about, hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. But it had 2,400 players play this 18-year-old game at once in a beta patch. Which, that's not like click the game, buy the game, download it. That is go out of your way to set up the beta patch and play it online for this experience. And then it had like that 2,400 players that happened. And this is where like you look at the community and you look at like niche games and you see, holy shit, there's like community goodwill, developer goodwill. There's a relationship between the players and the developers. That feels really, really like kind of quaint to someone who's based on like bigger genres and stuff. And you just look at this little community, go, holy shit, this is really working. And then through the start of 2022, they did the same with 2 other games, two of the Blaze Blue series, Central Fiction and Tag. And immediately there's like 4,700 players playing this game. That's a crazy peak for such a niche little series. And then the thing that really, really kicked it off, at least as far as like the big numbers, and you're starting to see this little community go, oh shit, there's actual money here. Guilty Gear Strive had rollback netcode, and it's the first game in the series to break 1 million sales. And the experience is so different that the last Guilty Gear series, like cumulatively they sell loads, but the last game barely broke 500k. I'm not even sure if it did. So they completely doubled the amount of people who were playing because they just went, what do our players want? What are our players actually asking for? And the one part that is like, this has literally been a crusade. Since the day of Skullgirl, since 2012, since 2013 with Killer Instinct, this has been a crusade where people in the community have been talking about rollback. They've been asking for rollback. They've been screaming it from the rooftops at every point in time. But the Japanese developers are too busy, been stuck in their ways going, no, we know what's right. Or, no, we can't do this because we built our games for delay-based netcode. We can't do that. We have to rebuild our games. They didn't have the foresight to listen to the community. And as soon as they do, their sales double. And you're like, well, look at that. And that isn't the answer. And that isn't the important thing. And then there's just a little thing where it's like, someone's called this netcode literally witchcraft. And I don't know if you've maybe played any fighting games or maybe played a little Smash Brothers or something like that online. And it's just lag. It's just a laggy fest. It's not really enjoyable. There's a little bit of jumping back, a little bit of stuff like that. And even you think, if you're playing a shooter and you've got maybe 120 milliseconds ping, it's a bad experience. You get shot around the corner, right?
Oh god, yeah.
There's people reporting perfect experiences with 170 milliseconds ping. Because of how good the rollback is.
That is almost unbelievable.
It's unbelievable until you try it.
Yeah.
And that's just, the community have been really, really, really solid about this for so long. And then the major thing because I've been following this for a while and I think it's really, really cool. And I've always like looking for a reason. How do I talk about it here? How do I talk about it here and kind of tell the story of, listen, if you sit down in front of your developers and give good feedback, give correct feedback, and show them results in like other worlds and other like things, they'll eventually have to listen to you. But the reason that we're talking about it now is because EVO just happened. And that was EVO, which is, the biggest fighting game tournament in the world, has been for decades now. But it was, this is first time back since COVID, under the control of Pokemon's company and Sony, which is interesting enough that Pokemon co-owns EVO alongside Sony. But it was an incredible experience and all that. But 3 games that are old got rollback announced at the same time. It was Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Obviously, Persona 4 and the Persona games are now on PC. P4 Arena is now on PC, and that's like, that had another spike in players as soon as they announced the rollback patch. And it was literally, hey, here's the rollback patch. It's out now, by the way. And it's just this old little game that all of the work they put in, all of like the years of, especially Arc System Works, they're the ones who make all the fighting games because they're the best in the world at it. And they make all these incredible games, but it's always that one little thing they got wrong. That one little thing they got wrong. In the same way you're maybe playing like a mobile game. You're like, this is really good. All the game designers put loads of hard work into it. And then the monetization people came and just shat all over it. And you're like, well, fuck's sake. It was that way for so long. And now this community has this massive renaissance of, here's your old game from, the PS3 game from the mid-2000s, rollback on PC in good form. Dragon Ball FighterZ, which sold 8 million copies, was destroyed by delay-based netcode. People were literally just like, no, this is unplayable now, because they've seen the light of like Guilty Gear Strive and stuff. They're playing Dragon Ball FighterZ and going, where's the rollback? And it was crazy because in the announcement after the DBFZ Top 8, you could hear a crowd go wild. As soon as the producer, who's a Japanese lady, said, it was very, Japanese accent, and the crowd's like, you could almost hear him go, did she say rollback? Did she say rollback? Holy shit, yes! And it was this like immense moment of celebration for everyone. And then SNK did the same for Samurai Shodown, saying, here's rollback in 2023. And we're getting to this point where features like that are being celebrated because they're such an important thing. But it's like, to me, it's this case of this community came together and decided, no, we're on a crusade. We know what we want. We know better than you developers. This time we actually mean it, because there's times where that's gone a bit wrong.
Yeah.
But there's just this incredible experience of this community rallied together as this niche form of like players and went, no, we know what we want. We know what we want. It is the perfect thing to make all of these games better. We will fight the developers tooth and nail for years until we get it. And I thought it's just like, in a world where developers seem to be taking the piss, where developers seem to be kind of like, under the control of the publisher, trying to nickel and dime you.
Yeah, it's like almost they're not allowed to put the time into the thing that they know that they want to do, and they kind of know that you want.
Yeah, and that's the case where this to me is like the perfect story of because I talk about this a couple times on the channel, where I think in terms of games, there's a triangle of interest. There's the consumer, there's the developer, and there's the publisher. And it's kind of like a pick two. Or sometimes it's kind of like a pick one. And that feels really bad, where it's like, well, the publisher's going to make all the money, but the consumer's going to feel left out, and the developer's going to feel they've been like crunched. Or, maybe the publisher's going to spend loads of money on the developer to give them a good time, but the developer's not going to release the game for a long time, so the consumer and the publisher's kind of scuffed. This is like a perfect example of all three are happy, because the developer gets to make a game that's really good and loads of people play it and praise it. Customers get exactly what they want, which is a good experience, a good online experience in video games. No bullshit, literally zero bullshit. It's just the experience you want. And publishers get to see increased sales, because that's the thing. It's like, a lot of the time we always talk about how, positive PR isn't really worth much in the industry anymore, because people will just buy whatever.
Yeah.
And this is like proof of the opposite. This is proof of the opposite, that this whole scene, this whole community is growing like crazy, because they're finally going, oh no, there was a problem. You can't play your games online. And that wasn't a problem until COVID, but it kind of highlighted it all. And now everyone is like I said, rallied together. Looking at the reactions, and I've only like handpicked a couple here, where it's literally just like, this person saying, I'm living in the greatest era right now, I fear. And that's why I feel in a load of different ways, looking at like Square Enix releases and looking at kind of stuff like that. And it's even like we're secretly living in a golden age for games, the video we just released. It's like the positivity, if you look for it in the industry, is completely insane. It is completely next level. And I think that a tournament Sony's involved in had all these announcements, had all this positivity, had all this stuff of just, this is what we needed. Pokemon's the GOAT. Saved fighting games for us. And I just thought that was like a beautiful story that people may not be super aware of, because it is kind of niche. Unless you're watching like Maximilian Dude, you'll see videos like 30, 40k of people like, this has got rollback and it's great. Or like, if you really love a genre and you have a community for a game, absolutely sit down and figure out, how are we going to do the same? How can we get our almost comeback story, our story of what is best for everyone?
Yeah.
How can we do that?
And I think here it's interesting because it's like, it's something that's, I suppose, objectively superior for the gameplay experience. Yeah. And often that's what's kind of hard, because a bunch of fans may want something that a bunch of other people may not actually want. Right? Yeah. So like often there's, it kind of tears a player base up a little bit. Mm-hmm. We've seen it in loads of games. But this is a pretty good example where it's like, no, this is probably just going to be better for everybody.
And it is, yeah.
And it is. And look what happens when you patch this into an old game. People come back. Yep. And I guess that's the thing. Like, the experiment happened and people actually, I mean, maybe not necessarily voted with their wallets because they already had the game, but they voted with their time and they came back, thus proving to publishers that this is something that should be prioritized from the get-go.
Yeah, that's the thing where I really hope that this kind of trickles into, because obviously the only publisher here that's, well, I guess there's two publishers here that like can learn a lesson from this, and that's Bandai Namco and Atlas. And Atlas are always known for like, obviously they're doing better now with the Persona series, but they're renowned for people like, please give us a crumb of goodwill, because we love your games, we love what you do, but you handle them like morons. And then Bandai Namco have a couple little things, they're generally okay. But it's like, there's so many lessons for, I think, publishers to learn for the long term, right? And this is the thing that I found really, really important to this. This has been a long grind from the community to make this happen. And that's the thing that I think is missing when you look at how people consider games, or like how publishers consider. It's all about the short term, it's all about the quick win, the quick buck, whatever else. Or, you know, it's... they talk about like building IP and building worlds, but they never talk about building good customer relationships.
Yeah.
Unless they're a platform like Microsoft. But Microsoft and even like kind of Sony stepping into that arena in the same way of, no, we have to go to the customers. To me, it represents as like, maybe it's niche enough. Maybe you won't feel it if you're a fan of Battlefield for a while. Maybe you won't feel it if you're a fan of Call of Duty for a long time, because those are bigger, broader experiences. But if you like kind of smaller games, maybe I'm just feeling particularly optimistic because I see this being a good thing, and I see other things happening in the world that feel a little bit like, no, we're fucking tired of the bullshit, we're going to fight back. But it feels like there's a little bit of a renaissance coming for consumers needing value in video games.
Well, this
and
I think
long-term
it's
value.
They actually, it's not slacktivism.
Yeah.
Because when it was put in, they actually came back. And I think that's the important thing. It's like, don't just jump on a cause because it's, I don't know, fun to have a cause on the internet. It's like actually, you know, hold up your end of the bargain and actually play the game when the change is made.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the strength here. That's why there's actually been a cascading effect where more and more and more games have it. And I think it's quite literally going to, it's happening right now. It's causing a word of mouth network effect, right? People are going onto the rooftop saying, hey, look at all these developers. They've actually listened. Here are all of these games. This is my favorite fighting game from 12 years ago. Now it actually has this. We can both get it in Steam. Let's have some fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess it's like actually backing up your desire with actually buying the game, or at least playing the game, showing the dev like, okay, cool, you did that. Now I'm going to play your game. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in a small enough scale of the community that works. But the one thing, because I was just about to say, well, that doesn't work for bigger games. We know that because of the Modern Warfare 2 boycott image that always goes around.
Oh, that's the funniest one, yeah.
But I always think it's like, it's about the positive movement as opposed to the negative stuff. People won't punish themselves by not playing their game. But if you play the games that are successful, if you talk about the games that are successful, like you kind of do with like indies and stuff and have the word of mouth, I think it's kind of like that network effect of, if you go around and celebrate the games that are doing well, and you celebrate the games that are doing the right thing, then it may not seem like it, but there is like the butterfly effect of change there. There's a butterfly effect of, well, will one more person pay attention? How many friends will they convince? How many friends will they convince up the chain? And then does that get to a point where, because even that's it, like, actually, I'll grab one specific example just to say, because I looked at Steam charts, and to be fair, there is another, there was a new character, Bridget, a very famous character from Guilty Gear, being added today. But over the like EVO weekend, and this happens quite often, but like there's Guilty Gear Strides up to 11,000 player peak, but that's at the top of Steam charts under trending because it's a 445% change in 24 hours. Same with King of Fighters 15, and that is just, that's the good news. Everyone going, this developer's doing a great job with these great characters, these things we want to see. The rollback, obviously Strives had it for a while, but it's just this, just basically big happiness about video games because people ask for stuff and they're getting it, right?
And that's why we're doing this, because actually big happiness about video games is really good. Yeah, and we need to cover the positive stories when they happen, because sadly it's not as often as we'd always like, but people need to know.
It's like, I'm imagining a room where there's a faceless figure that's a game player, a faceless figure that's a publisher, and a faceless figure that's a developer. And I don't know how the Predator handshake would work with 3 people, but it feels like that. It feels like just everyone stand in the room and like, yeah, we're all best friends. We're going to have a fucking time of our lives here. We're going to have a agreement with consumer and developer. Sure, it took a bit of convincing, but doesn't it always?
Yeah.
Doesn't it always take convincing for everyone to be in the same room and do the right thing together? It's fucking great.
So straight up,
it's great.
Everyone's happy.
Yep.
It's really good news. And
I wish I played more fighting games.
There you go, because you've long time been. I mean, I think I've won a single round of, not even round.
Yeah.
I've got like a few KOs against you in Smash.
A few stocks off me, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's almost like that sort of Top Gun Maverick situation where, you know, all the candidates just lose every single thing. And I guess that's the weird thing, because I later heard an interview with somebody who was actually in Top Gun, like the actual Top Gun, who's like, oh, yeah, no, it's pretty realistic that a really good instructor will just win 9 out of 10. And it's funny, because that's what it's like in fighting games. It's also what it's like in StarCraft 2. I suppose for me, there's just something that I've always loved. I mean, look, team game's great, but personally for me, it's always been the 1v1. Always been 1v1 where
That's a fun thing where I always grew up as a fan of boxing because my dad watched a lot of it. We kind of trained a little bit together, not super hard, but like it was that thing of just, that is when, I guess the handiest way I would say it is, if you like playing a lot of video games and you feel a little bit empty, you play team games and you get frustrated, go pick up StarCraft 2 or go pick up even maybe Warcraft 3 or a fighting game, because you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, you can become the man who practiced the one punch 1,000 times.
It is honestly, that's why I love the community so much. It's such a, I saw an article titled "Why Fighting Games Are Underutilized in the Esports Market Overall." And you know what it is? They're too good. They're too clean. They're too pure. You don't have like big drama of team stuff going on or big roster changes. You just have, you know, 2 people in an arena going against each other. And the stories and feeling of that is incredible. And now you can do that online with a good rollback, so you can have that experience, which means this whole thing is going to be, it's almost like, I'm trying to think of a kind of different example, but it's, no, there's something there, but it's that idea of like, you know when people crawl out of the woodwork and they've been like training in their basement for like 100 years and they show up just like, yeah, I'm fucking here. I've actually secretly been the greatest the whole time. Now that stuff's going to be all visible online. And like that's the stuff.
There is somebody who is season 4 Uncle Iroh, and he is going to kick your ass.
Yeah, it's like that stuff as a story being in games is kind of what's like, where I think there's a lot of meaning in playing video games. Obviously, you can kind of do it for fun or not be super serious, but it's some of the best stuff, some of the best. And developers are in like that little subsect of gaming where everyone's happy together. Almost everyone. There's a couple little things still. Obviously, nothing's perfect, but it's a beautiful tale to have a Sony-backed tournament go so beautifully.
Yeah. So that's off to you, FGC. Go check out fighting games.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I don't know if we... Okay, right.
Yeah.
To leave you in one thing. Matt, one fighting game. Recommend me one fighting game.
Okay.
Can't be Smash.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd probably have to say at the minute, because I'm not even a massive fan of Guilty Gear, I'd probably say that. I'd probably say GD Strive. It is the big one at the moment that everyone's super, super behind. People are a little bit miffed on some changes from the past series entries, but it's like that's the story at the minute. Also, it's crazy. It's crazy fun. It's crazy enjoyable. It's really good.
There you go.
Yep.
That's it from us. So we'll see you next time.